audience, especially students of Universitas Terbuka. Welcome to EFL Curriculum and Material Development course. In this session, we are going to discuss the steps and components of syllabus. Syllabus is to inform students about general information about the course, learning outcomes and objectives, textbook and required readings, course organization, teaching learning activities, and assessment. In developing syllabus, there are at least steps like conducting needs assessment, formulating goals and objectives, evaluating instructional materials and media, planning teaching learning activities, and developing assessment. We are going to discuss those steps one by one. First is conducting need assessment or need analysis. This step is the first step of every syllabus design. Need assessment is a collection of techniques and procedures to collect data about the learners, situation, and purposes why they want to learn English. That data collected become starting point of formulating the goals and specifying the course objectives. This implies that the result of need analysis will lead for information that the designer will use to formulate goals or to specify course objectives. Need analysis will examine present and target situation. Present situation, like to collect information for baseline, point of departure, and also to observe current situation where students embark. Questions, for example, like what is current language proficiency? Are they in basic, intermediate, or advanced level? The target situation, in the other hand, is to seek information on the condition students expect to experience. Questions, for example, what is their expectation? What do they want to learn? In language learning, need analysis should seek information on situation in which a language will be used, objectives and purposes for which language is needed, types of communication that will be used, and level of proficiency that will be required. Techniques to collect data are, for example, focus group discussion, oral interview, document analysis, written questionnaire, observation, or placement tests. The second step after conducting need analysis is formulating goals and objectives. Brown explains that goal is a general statement concerning desirable and attainable program purposes and aims based on perceived language and situation needs of the participants in the program. The keywords from that definition can be explained into this way. Goals are statements, not questions, started by phrases like, by the end of the course, upon the completion of the program, the goal of the program, the student should be able to blah 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 blah. So those are the typical of goal statement. Goals are program purposes. It states the purpose of the program. The purpose should be desirable and attainable. Goals are developed based on perceived needs. Those needs are language needs and situation needs. So in conclusion, goal state the purpose of the program based on language and situation needs perceived by the designer. Here are some points to consider about the goals. Goals are general statement of program purposes. It focuses on what students should be able to do after a program, and goals become basis to specify objectives. and goals may be adjusted to changes. There are so many forms of goals. For example, language and situation-centered, functional goals, structural goals, attitude and feelings goal. Language and situation-centered, for example, by the end of the course, the students should be able to converse at restaurant. So from this example, we can see the language and situation. The examples of functional goals is the goal of the course is that the students should be able to converse in social English with focus on greetings, conversational openers, and farewells. The examples for structural goals is the goal of the program is that students understand the grammatical system of English. And the example for attitude and feelings goal is that by the end of the course, the students will gain an appreciation of English culture. From goals, we come to the objectives. What is an objective? Objective is defined as specific statement that describe particular knowledge, behaviors, and or skills that students should be expected to know or perform at the end of a course or a program. From that definition, we can identify that a good objective should have at least 3 components. The first one is performance, the second one is condition, and the third one is criterion. Those are the components should be included when we are formulating objectives. Performance is what students will be able to do. Condition is the quality or level of acceptable performance. And the criterion is condition under which performance is expected to occur. Look at the example of an objective. Upon the completion of the course, the students should be able to write a 250-word recount text based on the pictures provided with correct language features and text structures. From that example, we can identify the 3 components of objectives. Those are performance, condition, and criterion. The performance is the students should be able to write a recount text. Condition, based on the pictures provided in about 250 words. And the criterion is with correct language features and text structures. So that example proves that the criteria in formulating objectives are there. Other criteria of a good objective is specific, measurable, and clear. Specific means that the objective informs specifically what the students will learn in the class. Measurable is describing what the students must demonstrate for mastery. Clear, articulate some of knowledge addressed in the class. The next steps in designing syllabus is instructional material and media. These material and media can be developed after objectives are specified. So the steps start from need analysis, moves to formulating goals and objectives, and then developing material and media. Material and media can be developed after an objective is specified. Material and media will function as an input received and practiced by the student at classroom. The media can take forms of printed materials, books, or non-printed materials such as video or cassette. In developing material and media, we are also familiar with what we call authentic material. Authentic material at first is not dedicated for teaching, but it is used for teaching. For example, is newspaper, magazine. They are authentic materials when we use it for teaching. At first, it is not dedicated for teaching, but teachers can always use material like newspaper or magazine for teaching purposes. What is material? According to Brown, material is any systematic description of the techniques and exercises to be used in classroom teaching. A course always needs material as resources. Without materials, the students will have no input to be practiced or exercised in the classroom. There are some functions of a material as a resource. First, it is to present the lesson, to aid practice and communication interaction, to develop classroom activities, and to learn grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, or language expressions. When we are developing instructional material or media, we are familiar with the term materials evaluation. It is the process of finding the best instructional materials and media available in the market that matches the goals and objectives of the course. 3 roles should be asked in material evaluation. Those are materials, teacher, and students. Those roles should be asked when we are evaluating materials available in the market. The first question related to the materials. For example, are goals and objectives available? Will be the materials the only source? Will it be provided for every student? The second question related to the role of teachers. For example, are they well-trained teachers? What are their level of English proficiency? Are they free to adopt or supplement the materials? And the last questions related to the role of students. For example, is each student required to have the materials? Will they use it in class or at home? Finding the most suitable materials, a syllabus designer match available materials with course objectives by adapting material or by developing materials. Adapting material is a process of using what is value in existing materials while adapting it to the needs or changing needs of the program. Richard mentioned forms of material adaptation. First is modifying content. In this process, content is modified to suit target learners' social background. The second form is adding or deleting content. In this process, some units may be dropped or added to content. The next form is reorganizing content. The sequence of the content may be changed. The next is addressing omissions. Content is added to address what is missing. The next form is modifying tasks. Exercise or tasks are modified to have more focus. And the last form is extending tasks. Insufficient content is expanded. Material adaptation process will take form starting from analyzing, classifying, and organizing. Analyzing consists of several steps. First is match existing materials with courses' goals and objectives. The second one is list the mismatch and match materials. And the last one is determine supplement needed. Those are in analyzing process. The next step is classifying process. In classifying process, the steps are classify the materials based on the objectives. Objectives not yet covered are then identified, and list missing materials in relation to goals and objectives are evaluated. And the last step is fill in gaps by looking at other materials. The last step in this process is organizing, that consists of several steps. Reorganize to better match the objectives, or change sequence to match objective with relevant materials. Another type of developing material is by material development. This is different from material adaptation. Why? Because material developing consists of writing or developing materials from the beginning. This is a good idea when need assessment was already conducted, goals were formulated, objectives were specified, and courses was well described. In developing material, there are some advantages that syllabus designer can get. First of all is the relevance. Developing material from scratch is very relevant with the objectives formulated. Materials produced will directly be relevant to goals and objectives of the program. In addition, there is also flexibility for the program. Designers has more flexibility to revise or to adapt when there is change in course objectives or goals. Okay, audience, the next step in developing syllabus is formulating teaching learning activities. In this formulating teaching learning activity, we have to identify or to select techniques and exercise rationally to achieve the objectives. The teaching learning activities should be based on the course objectives, and it should aim at helping teachers achieving the objectives. Teaching learning activities should be developed to help teachers do their teaching. So the keyword in formulating teaching learning activities are, first, it should be selected to achieve the objectives based on the course objective, aim at helping teachers achieving the objective. In teaching learning activities, there are ways that a language program helps teachers through curriculum development to do their job. Their steps could be conducted through orienting to the syllabus, supporting teaching efforts, monitoring instruction, and providing ways for feedback. In developing teaching learning activities, a syllabus designer should consider the context, learners, teachers, administrative process, and instruction. A syllabus designer should consider context. What does it mean? It means that the designer should consider scale and use of syllabus that may affect teaching learning activities. It should inform information of student profile, characteristic, and age. The syllabus designer also should consider teachers regarding their fellow teachers, personality, English proficiency, and teaching styles. Syllabus designer also should consider administrative process, information on administrative works that teachers need to know. And the last one is instruction. This is information regarding the teaching learning activities, type of instruction, classroom management, time allocation, and intensity. Well, audience, the last step in developing syllabus is developing assessment. Assessment is to check if the objectives are achieved. Why assessment? Assessment is used to check the student's progress, to reinforce the student's learning, and to evaluate teaching learning process. To get feedback to the teachers about how good or how poor the student progress is. Another is to reinforce the student's learning regular feedback, and also to evaluate teaching learning process, provide the teachers with basic information about the process. I can give an example about giving feedback to the teachers about how good or poor the students progress. For example, in the beginning of the course is the placement test, or during the course like formative and summative tests. Test or assessment is also used to reinforce the students' learning regular feedback, like to self-control, to learn from errors, and also to study more seriously. Assessment is also to evaluate teaching learning process. For example, to evaluate the approach, to check if the goals and objectives are appropriate, to use if the materials developed are good, and to see if assessment is appropriate. There are types of assessment that we are familiar with. The first one is placement assessment. The second one is observation of learning. The third one is short-term achievement assessment, diagnostic assessment, achievement assessment, and proficiency assessment. I would like to give you example for each type of assessment. The example for placement assessment is to determine level students should join, conducted before a course, like a placement test conducted by language course to place the students whether they are in basic, intermediate, or advanced level. Observation of learning, this is provide teaching learning activities to observe learning. For example, the task or exercise during a lesson. A task exercise during a lesson is categorized into observation of learning. Short-term achievement assessment usually is given on daily basis to monitor if the students make progress on particular course objective, for example, formative tests. Diagnostic assessment is to find problems that the students have in their learning activities. Achievement assessment is given in one period of teaching learning process to find out students' achievement and the effectiveness of the program. For example, final tests like EBTANAS, UN, UAS. And the last one is proficiency assessment. This is to predict the students' success in future activities that involve the use of language. For example, TOEFL test, IELTS, or let's say acupressure test. Well, audience, this will end our session. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you will understand this topic. Thank you.